Hi, Allie.
Hello.
I see you as a political news creator that's funny, quick-witted, and gives us action to take. How would you describe what you do and who you are?
Yeah, no, for sure. First of all, thank you. That's very nice. And also, thank you for having me here.
Oh, yeah, welcome.
Thanks. I think you described it well. I would say that I am a educational content creator. So I originally started making videos primarily where I was teaching people about gender. I was in college at the time taking gender classes. I was just like really fascinated by the psychology of bias and human rights and, social issues in general. And so I wanted to teach people about what I was learning. More recently, as whenever Trump is president, everything is like a lot more dire all the time. So I have sort of repositioned myself more into political news. And hopefully, if and when the country is like more normal, I can go back to just like educating people about psychology again. But for now, yeah, I make news updates. Thank you for calling me quick witted. I try to make them funny and entertaining. And yeah, like you said, I try to not just fearmonger, but give people actionable things that they can do to make themselves feel not only make themselves feel, but to genuinely be participating in the political system to hopefully like make the world better and whatnot. That'd be ideal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely need to make the world better and know what to do in order to do that. So, yeah, thanks for educating us in a way that feels like it's topical, like it feels like current. It's always like what's going on right now, but it's kind of like bum, bum, bum. Okay, so you said you started when you were in college, when you were studying gender. Did you just kind of say, like, I'm gonna try making content about what I'm interested in? Or because you said you started doing more political stuff now that it's more necessary. Did you just decide to become a content creator?
Yeah, it was sort of accidental. It wasn't necessarily like it was not pre-planned by any sense of the matter. Well, when I was in college, a couple friends and I started a homeless shelter for students at our university. And so I think the initial idea that I'd had was like, we need to fundraise. We were fundraising through grants and in our community and whatever, but I had seen a couple people fundraising for like similar projects on TikTok. And so I thought I'd make TikToks about it. So I'd made a couple, but then there was one video that I decided, oh, I'm actually going to try to make like a political messaging video, and it's going to be about trans bathroom rights. And I came up with like what I thought was a catchy hook, and I can still like mostly recite the video in my head. How many times I like went over the script and I don't know. I filmed like 10 versions of it. I finally got one that I thought, okay, I'm getting my message well. Like I think it'll hook people. I'm holding a drink. I've seen people on TikTok say like if you hold a drink, it looks natural and it looks like you just walked up to the
Oh,
camera and had a good idea. Yeah, so I used to always hold a cranberry juice in my videos. And that video went viral, and it was the first time that I'd actually like tried on a video, and it went viral. So I got the like positive reinforcement from TikTok pretty quickly. And I decided to make one or two other videos about interesting social sciencey things that I knew about, like how Swedish prisons are much more rehabilitative than American prisons and kind of look like a dorm room, like a prison cell. If you show an American a Swedish prison cell, they'll usually be like, "Is that where you live at university?" And so that went viral. Basically, I had a couple that I in succession that I got lucky with, more or less, I assume. In college, I just kept talking about the things I was learning about. I didn't think of it as a job or even really something that I was doing on purpose. But by the time I graduated, which was now a year and a half ago, I realized that I could try to make this full time. And now that's what I do.
okay. So how do you decide what you're going to focus on for a video?
I jump around a lot. So, I mean, there's been some projects, for example, that I've stuck with longer term. There was one group of queer refugees living in Uganda that were trying to leave the country after the Kill the Gays bill was passed there, and they were facing a lot of like daily violence. And so that was something that I was like, okay, each week I'm going to make a video about this. And it was very pre planned. I would say the vast majority of what I do is extremely not pre planned. It'll either be like I read something or I have a conversation with a friend that sparks a thought and I'm decide to research something and, and script it out in my head. Or, I more recently I see the news or I see what people
Yeah.
are talking about on Twitter now that I'm, doing more news based content, and it's just sort of like daily commentary, but it's usually very impromptu, I would say.
All right. So with all that's going on right now, you know how it seems like there's new news every day. There was all those executive orders. It just seems like there's so much going on. And to the average person who wants to stay informed but doesn't want to feel overwhelmed, do you have any advice? Like, how can we stay informed but not feel like this is way too much for me to take in right now? How can we stay informed but also know like what can we do about all of this?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, that's like the question of probably the next 4 years, right? And I think that the answer will probably change over time. But the biggest thing that sticks out to me is we are like in a media landscape where there are so many different places that you can get your news from. And it's very, I don't want to say it's necessarily like easy for someone to just decide that they are, a news anchor and start posting it. But like there's just a lot of options out there, and the motivations of people who are reporting on things right now are very different, right? It is something like when you are in a Trump presidency where there are always crazy headline stories, he's doing things that are objectively just clickbaity all the time. It's very easy for people who are just trying to like make a lot of money off the moment, off of your fear, to like accidentally fall into becoming a political news creator, except all that they're really doing is like making you frightened and reporting on the headlines without giving you something to do about them. I think that it's really important over time to like right now especially adjust who you're getting your news from, because there's just an onslaught of information at all times coming from all people, all angles, and obviously you want to diversify where you're getting your news from, but I think it's really important that you're opting into channels and papers and Substacks and wherever you get your news from people who very clearly have a vested interest in helping you figure out how you can feel productive and still feel hopeful in the mess.
So mostly paying attention to people who are going to give you hope and not just fear monger at you.
Yeah, because and like fear is totally valid, but if the fear is just never followed up with anything, if it's just breaking news, scary headline after scary headline without any action items, there are people who are going to give you all the headlines with action items, and that's just the more ideal place to be getting everything from.
Yeah, I definitely agree because you can't just sit in the fear. Like most people, when they feel impacted by something, they want to do something and not feel powerless. How do you stay grounded through all this?
That's an awesome question. I mean, my initial thought is like, I don't. I try my best, but I think that it's not perfect. And I think it's the kind of thing where, I don't know, I feel like maybe, honestly, I'd be really curious to hear your answer to this as well. But routine check ins with myself, like sometimes what I need is to actually stop reading the news for a couple days and just like hang out with my cat and my plants. And some days what I need is to read a lot of the news, really sit down with someone and be like, what the heck are we going to do about this? I don't think there's one answer, partially because the landscape is ever changing. And I say that as if we've been here for like 2 years already in this Trump presidency, and it's been like a month. But even still, like each day I find myself needing something different. And I think that it's worth not just having one strategy, but being willing to like adjust and, being flexible with yourself.
Yeah, the check-in with yourself. Yeah, I definitely know you mean. This morning I was reading all this information about all the money that was spent on deporting immigrants or migrants. It was a ridiculous amount of money. There was one trip that was, I think it was like $2.8 million spent going to India. Anyway, it was crazy. But then after lunch, my partner and I just laid in bed and had our cat in bed and just like were silent and just laid there. And then after I felt pretty refreshed. But I do know what you mean, like checking in with your body and just doing whatever you need to do to kind of reset. So, what gives you hope for the future?
The first thing that comes to mind is that, and I have been very vocally critical of the way that Democrats operated this last election cycle. I think that's something that people who like follow me would definitely know me for. My conversations with people who are like elected officials, Democrats in Congress, with people who, work very closely with the Democratic Party on messaging, et cetera. I do think that there has been a very genuine realization that there was like a really, really massive miscalculation on the part of the Democratic Party in terms of like what the American public wants. And I think a lot of people feel there's this are nervous about this feeling of like inevitability of, right now the Republican Party is stronger in their messaging. They have dominated the media space. However, are we going to catch up? And I think pre-election, I and many others, I was very much excluded from opportunities to work with Democrats to, promote certain Democrat politicians, et cetera, because I was also being critical of the party. I do think that that was obviously, I believe that was a failing strategy. And I think that the party is really willing to do a lot of shifting within itself. And I don't necessarily think that change is going to be visible overnight. And so I think I'm sort of like, waiting with fingers extremely crossed that the party will be able to reorient itself. But I do think that those internal shifts are happening, and they may not always feel extremely visible to the public, but I'm hopeful that now that party leaders realize how far behind the right we are in terms of messaging in a media landscape that, they've entirely created for themselves, more or less. They have entire platforms where all their folks have migrated to. Like, they have an information bubble that they are running. And Democrats are finally taking that seriously and interested in infiltrating and creating our own versions of that and our own better messaging. And I do feel hopeful that the party will come out of this strong.
Yeah, it is. It does make a lot of sense. And it is a lot of stuff that I've been kind of thinking about. I found a lot of that interesting, that you were sort of excluded in some ways because you were questioning the party itself, which I feel like...
Primarily because I was pro-Palestine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think we have to definitely realize like what went wrong with so much money that was poured into the election to begin with. Like, something had to not, like, something went astray. And I think you bring up a lot of good points. Do you think that they'll they'll figure it out and we'll figure out some kind of thing that brings us together in a more like unified vision? Because it also seems to be about like appealing to like regular Americans, like independents, like middle ground type people.
Yeah, I think that there can be a unified vision with a couple of key points on it. You know what I mean? Like, we should be the anti-billionaire party. We should be the anti-war party. These sort of like popular values that will bring a lot of people into a big tent. The way that I hope that our messaging goes, I think a lot of Democrats for a while have felt obligated to stick to a very specific script, to honestly not be seen in public very frequently. Like, there's clearly like a fear of interacting too much with the media from Democrats in case someone says one wrong thing and everything goes astray. Republicans don't have that same fear. And I think that's the advantage of that for the Republican Party, is that they have multiple factions of the party, but each section is sort of able to be effective in their messaging. I think that Democrats, I'm progressive, and I would really love to see a more centralized progressive messaging hub. And for the good of the American people and the Democratic Party and whatever, I would also love to see a centrist Democrat messaging hub. And I probably won't like everything that they put out, but if it brings people into the party against like fascism and whatever the GOP is going to right now, then that is ideal for me. And so, yeah, I think that the party should have like a unified few key points, but I think that we live in a two-party system. We're trying to attract a ton of people to our party. I think that necessitates having a few different like subsets of the Democratic Party having their own messaging hubs. I would say that right now there's a lot of debate within the party. There's always going to be debate within the party. I think that's helpful. But I think the way that it's structured right now is often only hurting ourselves. But I think that if we actually have a few different robust coalitions of lawmakers that are able to visibly negotiate with each other, show the American people how we can legislate together with these disagreements, like, I think that we can start to have those debates in a healthy way that doesn't just become unuseful infighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if there was a board of messaging, it would be nice that if you were on it.
I think that young people who understand the current media landscape have been really undervalued by the left right now, by the big powers in the left, Congress people, the billionaire donors, whatever. And I think they realize that they messed up, and they're finally wanting to listen to people who understand the new media landscape. And so I've been going on trips to the House of Representatives. I've been talking with people. I've been posting some of what I do there and the people I talk to. And yeah, there's a few groups that are becoming significantly more organized right now, trying to create these better run messaging hubs that actually take into account like the youth perspective. And so I'm really hopeful that those go well, but there's a lot of frustrated but positive energy happening in the right direction. And again, it will like take a minute for it all to fall into place, but I think that the party will come out stronger. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I see the energy that people are bringing to it, and I'm hoping that that energy will be channeled in the right direction.
Yeah, I hope so, and I think so. I think it's just like the individual when we personally face an obstacle or like we face a loss personally, we have to kind of regroup and challenge that head on and like become a better version of ourselves. And then like it's like we have to do that as a party now. Many people have to do that collectively and just like work together in a bigger, better way. I believe it'll happen. I mean, it has to. It's,
Yeah, it's our only option, right?
yeah, we can't just go backwards in time and progress for the long term. I mean, maybe short term it seems like that, but ultimately I feel we'll go the right way. So, anyway, we are going to wrap up, but I just had one fun question because I love to hear people's morning routines. Do you have any morning routine you do?
Oh gosh, I probably have a really awful morning routine. I'm super bad at like keeping my own schedule. I wake up like unfathomably late most of the time. Like I do not see the morning hours.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
well, I know, and I'm working on that. There's sometimes I do. I travel a lot too, so I'm constantly jet lagged. I would say my morning routine is to get out of bed, and I've been trying to not look at my phone first thing in the morning. I've been trying to snuggle my cat instead, and that's like the one thing I have set in stone because I think my cat, we don't let her outside anymore because of bird flu, and she's really not taken well to that. Both of them, we have two, they fight a lot already, and now they're inside all the time, and they're like mortal enemies now. So I'm like, okay, this will help her fend off the depression. It'll help me fend off the depression. Love the mutualism. So right now, just trying to wake up with my cat instead of waking up with terrifying news has been my approach.
Good call. What's your cat's name?
Good call. Yeah, their names are Gravy and Hope.
Gravy?
Gravy. So my mom calls her
Oh,
Gravy.
gravy. Yeah.
I put Gravy on her forms because I was embarrassed at
Gravy.
first, but she was the smallest one in her litter and she was the only one that was gray. So we called her Gray Baby and just smashed those together. And then we didn't come up with a different name for her. So it stuck.
Gravy. Okay. Wow.
Gravy. My brother says we should call her Gradolescent now, but I veto
Wow.
that now that she's grown up.
Thanks for your time. Do you have any other things you'd want to add before we conclude?
Just that I appreciate this. I think that we all as like creators who are trying to like promote, left wing ideas and like happiness have been, I mean, it's been a tough year. It's been awful. And like, I think that that means that a lot of the conversations about how we're doing what we're doing, where to get hope from, are just sort of getting sidelined in favor of like the everyday, oh my gosh, what is the new thing that it's like, I appreciate your approach to talking about these things. That's like taking a step back, being more of like a person. The concept of like interviewing content creators is really cool. And I think it's like, it's needed for us all to be like a little bit more in our humanity as opposed to like the day to day frightening rush of everything. So I just like, I appreciate what you're doing with this.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's ultimately because I'm really fascinated by creators and I feel like they're such brilliant minds. Like I really feel like you're a brilliant genius. And it's it's like I just want to and I want to develop a community. Like the creator circle is like a community and I'm more of like a one-on-one person. Like I like to connect with people one-on-one. So, but thanks for acknowledging what I'm doing.
Of course. No, it's very necessary.
So where can people find you? What are your socials?
Yeah. Well, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are my main platforms, but I also recently started a Twitter and a Blue Sky, so you can find me there as well. It's generally Allie, Allie, and then 202. I have an underscore on either side of the 202. That's because I'm from DC and that's the area code. People think that I went
Oh,
like Alley 1, Alley 2, Alley 3, and they're just like all taken, but it does have a meaning. So yeah, I'm Alley 202 across platforms and usually with some underscores, but Blue Sky didn't let me have underscores. And I think on Twitter it might have already been taken, but Yeah, they're all connected to each other in my
Uh,
link tree.
yeah, you're pretty easy to find. But yeah, thanks so much. I definitely have way more questions for you, but I'll ask them at a later time.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share this with a friend who might like it. Really appreciate your support.